That's okay. Just
Okay. All right, everybody rise for the Lord's Prayer and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. We forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. To be as quick as I can, because we do have a long agenda. I'm gonna try my very best not to be the reason for it being longer than it is. So we'll start with the roll call. Madam Clerk.
Davis. Here. Columbia. Crockett. Franklin. Etherly. Forward. Here. Chris, one coming in.
All right, so I want to welcome everybody here, KJIW, and also Helena West, Helena World, that, and all of our other guests or media that might be on Zoom. And our actual guests, we want to thank you for your attendance. Usually what we do is invite our out-of-town guests to speak first so they can get back on the road, but I don't see them present. So we're going to start, Mr. Mundy, if you don't mind. We'll start with you, and if we'll let you go first. It's Mr. Elijah Mundy, yes, sir, if you don't mind. I don't say help our people here that we're supposed to be here, so if they show up, we'll do that after your presentation. And a copy of Mr. Mundy's is attached to the packet. Mr. Mundy, you're recognized. Thank you. Is that recording? Hi. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Giving all honor to God, the Creator of all things, and to Him alone be the glory. To Mayor Kevin Smith, City Attorney Jose Valley, City Council members, and other city officials. I am here on a peace mission. I'm going to make a proposal in a few minutes that I hope will be one step in the right direction of bringing some peace. The Lord says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." He also says, "Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." Now, some of you have heard the story of the Hetfield and the McCoys. It was an ongoing war and fighting involving two rural American families of West Virginia. The feud incredibly started over a dispute over ownership of two Razorback hogs, and it later escalated. Now, this lasted for years, and dozens were killed from both sides. It was sad, tragic, and unfortunate. We have here in Helena-West Helena a type of Hetfield and McCoy's feuding and fighting going on between the mayor and the city council. And it's been going on since the 1990s before consolidation. It was so bad in the 90s that it made national news. We saw boycotting of city council meetings as a fighting tactic, and there were near fist fights. And there was one time when I had to stand between and stop the mayor and a city councilman who were about to get into a fist fight. At one point, it got so bad that it was reported that certain council members and political operatives met out at the landfill with their guns to have a shootout, kind of like Wild Earp, Doc Holliday, and the Clintons going gang at the OK Corral. But they got cold feet and they realized they had gone too far. Now, I was involved along with other citizens then in trying to make peace, and eventually we did stop the boycotting and resolve some other issues. The situation was bad then, and since consolidation, the fighting and combativeness have continued. Several times since consolidation, mayors and council members were on the verge of fist fighting during council meetings. There has been and still is yelling and screaming at each other, and the reputation of the city has suffered, and if you don't think so, you are in denial. Now, a town or a city is only as good as its citizens. We, the citizens of Helena-West are responsible for this by voting in combative individuals who have used bully tactics and allowing an environment to exist that allow candidates to go unopposed. Now, I'm speaking the words now that this Hatfield and McCoy fighting and feuding in Helena-West government has got to stop. My mother said, used to always say that enough is enough and too much stinks. Now, it is interesting that you open up the city council meetings with the Lord's Prayer. Most of you attend somebody's church, and yet when council meetings are called to order, there's fighting and combativeness, yelling and screaming like cats and dogs, and it makes all of us look bad. Saying the Lord's Prayer and not allowing this to go on is hypocrisy and an insult to God. The Lord is not pleased with this, and his judgment is coming, I guarantee you that. Now, there are two very important things that can bring peace, and that is, number one, a person's heart has to change, and number two, there are things that are stumbling blocks for peace, and they have to be removed. I hope that I have said, or what I have said, will help in a self-examination that will see the necessity of hearts being changed. Now, what I'm going to propose now is number two, to remove what I call a stumbling block mechanism that aids and abets some of the fighting and feuding. I'm calling my proposal, I want you to hear this, I'm calling my proposal the first step peace proposal. And I am asking you, the city council, and the mayor to help me in this first step. I need your help and cooperation. I am making a suggested motion and proposal, and asking that you, the city council, remove $5,000 spending limit and the source of some of this fighting and disagreement. The $5,000 spending limit was put in place as a punitive measure against the first mayor of the consolidated cities. It was a recipe for micromanaging, punishing. It was like a punishing tool, fighting and bickering, and it was unwise, a bad policy idea that can hinder city operation. It is my understanding that Helena-West has a $9 to $10 million budget. Am I correct on that, Mr. Treasurer? A $5,000 spending limit with a $9 to $10,000 million budget is ridiculous. It can and has been a problem and can hinder city operations. Arkansas state law allows up to $35,000 spending limit because it is practical for the mayor to have that amount to run a city, and if state law allows that, $35,000, the state law allows it, why is Helena still stuck with an unwise, outdated $5,000 spending limit policy that was enacted during the Stone Age of the consolidation for punitive reasons? The cost of living since that has gone up and prices are skyrocketing. Inflation is getting out of control. Gas prices are soaring. We're stuck with a $5,000 spending limit. This can create a situation when crises and emergencies come up, and you have to call a city council meeting every day, which can also drag out with fighting and feuding. Meanwhile, the crisis or emergency is building, and the city and citizens can suffer. That is why Arkansas law allows up to $35,000 spending limit for the mayor. Now, I got something on the desk. If you read, I want you to read it. It's Arkansas Law 1458-303 regarding the mayor's responsibility, and it reads as follows. Look at number A on that sheet, is yellow. In a city of the first class, the city of the second class, or incorporated town, the mayor or the mayor's duty authorized representatives shall have exclusive power and responsibility to make purchases of all supplies, all apparatuses, all the equipment, all the material and other things requisite for public purposes in and for the city, and to make all necessary contracts for work or labor to be done, or material or other necessary things to be furnished for the benefit of the city, or carried out any work or undertaking of a public nature in the city, except as provided under 1458-104, the governing body of any city of the first class shall provide by ordinance the procedure for making all purchases that do not exceed the sum of what the state of Arkansas is allowing now, $35,000. And of course, you can go along, there's a whole lot more to this, but I just want to focus in on that, on the $35,000. And when you look at this, when you really look at this, you look at the latitude that the mayor has. You look at the latitude. I'm a CEO, and so I might be a little bit favorable towards any CEO who sits in that seat, because I don't want things tying my hands. I don't like things micromanaging. I don't like things going down. I want to have a free hand to carry out my responsibilities. And that's what the state law says about the mayor's responsibility. Then Arkansas state law goes on to say, if expenditures for any purpose or contract exceed the sum of $35,000, what the mayor is supposed to do regarding competitive bidding, it tells you that. Now, this outdated $5,000 spending limit has been the object of much fighting and bickering, and charges being leveled about so-called serial contracts, spending and more. The council members have complained, the mayor has complained, and feels the $5,000 limit forces him into decision-making that can be questionable. I am not here to rehash all of that and get into a lot of rambling about the sins of the mayor or the sins of the council. Please do not do that tonight. I want to propose an ending to one problem source with a new beginning, the first step towards a new beginning. I'm making a peace motion or proposal, and I need the cooperation and the help of you, the city council, and the mayor. It's a motion for peace. I'm asking that you, the council, remove the $5,000 punitive, outdated spending limit and make what state law permits a $35,000 spending limit. I'm also asking the mayor, if this is done, to follow all state laws regarding the exceeding of the $35,000. Now, you as elected officials are to be creative about solving the problem. That's what the citizens elected you to do, and this can and should be done. Now, I know there's a lot of other problems, communication problems and things like that. So what I'm proposing, that we tonight make a motion to raise the spending limit to $35,000. And I would like Mrs. Ford, you're my city council representative. You're my ward. Mrs. Crockett, you're my ward. And I'm asking you, as a citizen, the citizens are the boss of the elected officials, and I'm asking you to make a motion to remove the outdated $5,000 spending limit and raise it to what state law has allowed. I'm asking you, as my city councilman, to do that. I'm asking you, Mrs. Crockett, as my city council, to do that. It's a simple thing. It's a simple thing. Then the mayor, if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, then that'll be dealt with later. But right now, we got to deal with this problem. It's just a first step. Yeah, we got to have better communication. There's a lot of stuff you all probably don't know, the mayor may not know. But this whole thing is that if you don't want to vote for what I'm talking about, what you're saying is it's business as usual. Just leave it like that. And you can punish the mayor, you can do this or drag out, and this is outdated. It should never have been done. So Mrs. Ford, Mrs. Crockett, Mr. Effie, and all the rest of you, I want you to make a motion and vote on eliminating that. And in the future, we're going to try to deal with some of the other problems. Because I've been involved in this stuff since the 1990s, trying to make peace, trying to deal with issues. And this has been going on. It didn't start with this man. It's been going on. I've seen what happened. Fighting, arguing, yelling and screaming. And the Lord says when you do that, everybody looks bad. So I need your help. I need your help. Mrs. Ford. I need your help, Mr. Columbus. I need your help. Monica, Mrs. Davis. I need your help. I need your help, Mr. Elton. I'm not here to talk about what all the mayor has done and what you mad at him about or vice versa. But this is a simple solution. Give him the $35,000. And then we need to form some better ways of communicating. And you have Mrs. Ramsey and Mr. Turner should be monitoring this whenever the mayor goes over the $35,000. So I am representing the citizen, want you to make this $35,000 is practical. You have a $10 million budget, and you got $5,000 $5,000 spending limit. So I need your help. Even Mr. Franklin, I want you to vote for it. I want you to vote for it. Well, okay, I'm just saying that I want you to vote for what I'm asking right here. If you don't want to do it, then you tell me that business be as usual, but I'm just asking you to do this. Okay? Can I get you to make a motion, Mrs. Ford? Mrs. Ford? Can I please, as my representative, get you to make the motion? I'm just trying to, this is going to eliminate one pocket of fighting and issues, but there are others. I'm not saying that there are not others. Can I get you to do that? I'm asking Mrs. Ford, can I get you to make the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But before I recognize any questions, and I will, thank you, Mr. Monday, very powerfully orchestrated statement and eloquent as usual. And you do go back a long way, and we both do in different ways. But I want to take myself out of this to say this. I completely agree that it's been an endemic problem of all the administrations before me since consolidation, and will continue to be after me unless it's addressed. And furthermore, for the public's benefit, the legislative body of the state of Arkansas, which is the highest auditing body that audits public spending for cities, audits us every year. And they're here now, auditing us right now. And our audits, for the first time ever, are made publicly available on our first time ever city government website for anybody to see, both of the city and also the water department. So you do have accountability. And if we cross the line, that the legislative audit, and we say legislative, but it is the highest auditing body in the state of Arkansas for schools, for cities, for counties, for government and state agencies. and they have an army of auditors. And we have 2 or 3 in this building right now. And they come every year. They do an annual audit. Their job is to uncover anything that might not be appropriate in terms of taxpayer spending. Also to look and see if we're in compliance with state law, federal law. We also do a federal law audit. If we have, I think it's $500,000 or $750,000, somewhere in that, over that in federal funding, we have to get a federal audit. Again, that's posted on our website for anybody to see. So we do have public accountability. Furthermore, I can't sign a check by myself. I have to have a co-signer, and I think that's a good policy to have. But in addition to the $5,000 spending limit, any expenditure I make has to be co-signed by another elected official or their designee. So there are lots of checks and balances in place. I want to go on the record saying I strongly support what you say, but not as a mayor, but as a citizen, because I've seen this since consolidation, and it will continue after my time. And we spend an inordinate amount of time discussing whether something is appropriate expenditure because of the $5,000 limit, when we ought to be talking about what people out here are asking us to talk about, which would be recreation and parks and animal control and ditches and blight removal and all of these bigger issues that people care about. That's what we need to be spending our time talking about. But instead we seem to get caught up in smaller matters. And I say that as somebody, again, not just me, but as you well point out, from since consolidation as almost a punitive micromanaging effort, and it's very difficult to manage a $10 million budget, 150 people, employees, under those circumstances, and do the job that the public expects a mayor or an administration or the city to do. So, having said that, first of all, to finally thank you, Mr. Franklin, and I think Ms. Crockett had questions.
I would like to first go on record to say that I am not mad with anyone, Mr. Monday. As I've said before, if I disagree with something and I was elected by the people to be the voice for the people. So if I sit here and just go along with everything just because the mayor says it and don't question anything, then elected me didn't do them any good. My second thing is, we're asking us to give him a $35,000 spending limit. And I heard you could read scriptures from the Bible, but how do you, let's say for instance, we say you're the CEO, and there's someone who gave him a responsibility where his spending limit was $3,000, but every time he came back, he spent $7,000. So do you justify that by giving him a $10,000 spending limit? How do you justify giving somebody more when they cannot with the limit? If you cannot be responsible for saying that tells you that you cannot spend $5,000 after approval. But every time you come back to the meeting, spend $20,000, $50,000, $100,000. It's been voted on that you should do this. So to me, giving you more power defeats the purpose of us even sitting here. We're gonna just go along with everything because this is what one person thinks that we should do. And I'm gonna just use the purchase of the excavator. We had a meeting. It was discussed with the water department that the place that they were trying to get to, they couldn't get to because it was wet. It was voted on that it be put out for bid and that the excavator be not ordered. When we come back, the excavator has been ordered and used. So it couldn't be returned. So if you can't go along, you're not going to reward your children
for not doing what they're being told to do or what is being expected of them with more gifts? Are you? Are you?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, the analogy is not quite what it is because the mayor is the CEO. And here's what I'm saying about this. And all I am saying is that this, I am hoping, is a new beginning. So whatever happened in the past, whatever, hey, you walk up to God, God forgive me of my sins, and he forgives you and give you a chance to start over again, and that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Okay, well, maybe we're doing this backwards. Maybe he needs to prove to us that he can do what the ordinance says before we give him more power. As long as he's not, and this is, I'm speaking for Wanda Crockett. I'm not gonna give my children extra because I keep telling them, clean up your room, clean up your room. The room is never clean. So in return, I go out and buy them 3 or 4 new pair of shoes, gifts and everything. Where does it make sense?
As for you, I'm a citizen. We have a whole lot of citizens, and we're fed up. We are fed up with a lot of things that's going on. And this is one step. And all I'm asking you is, will you help me? Will you help me and make that vote? Or are you going to just say, we're going to leave it like it is and let us continue the stuff that's been going on? I'm just asking for your help. Will you make a motion?
I would not support that. And what I'm saying, and again, I'm speaking for Wanda Crockett, you have to prove yourself before. What sense does it make? He knows that he has a $5,000 spending limit. We have a city attorney that sits there continuously and tells him that he cannot do serial contracts. Does that stop him? No, come on. No, that does not stop him. He always appoints. He's not an attorney. The attorney is telling him that these are serial contracts and you can't do this, but he pays no attention. Nothing that is said around here, he has it in his head, like you're saying, because he's the CEO, he's going to do what he wants to do. And I will not, Wanda Crockett, personally support giving him an increase until he can prove that he can follow the ordinance that are in place.
See, you're slapping me in the face.
No, I'm not.
Because what I'm saying.
If I did what you're asking, I would be slapping all citizens.
I can bring you citizens, and we can do that with the citizens.
And I can bring you something.
Okay, we'll see.
I can bring.
All I'm just saying is what I want, all I'm just asking you to do is this simple thing. Give it to him, and we will be monitoring and watching.
What's the use in monitoring? When you monitor it, if it's already gone, you can't get it back. Well, that's the same thing. We got 100 and I don't know how many $1,000 excavator that cannot be used anymore.
So you're saying let business stay as usual. You're not going to help me.
I don't know how to.
What about you, Mrs.
What I wanted to say, you brought out some points that I guess I've been saying for the last 10 years, whatever. You identified problems such as communication, trust. There seems to be no team. Where I was wondering why you did not look at addressing and working and forming groups to work on those areas. When you build trust, when you improve communication, then you do things like increase and that type of thing. But when your foundation is cracked, you can't speak. I'm holding this and not sharing this information. That causes mistrust, Mr. Murray, and you know that.
See, this is what you talk about involved. I think.
Well, let's go on to
decades. I've done it so much, my wife was upset about me. We don't even want me to get it. And so all I'm just trying to do is, I'm starting right now to a first step. And I'm just asking you.
And you know, the first steps are your foundation. And those foundations would be building communication, right? Yeah. Building communication, the trust, and then we go on to other things. Right, but you what's wrong with starting with those things, those first steps?
Because right now, we've got to get this out of it because the state law says it should be. State law. This thing is outdated. Why we want to stay with something that's old and outdated and it should never have been enacted in the first place? It was acted for punitive reason, of fighting a punishment. And what you're saying, when you legalize this, so we continue to exercise, but you're talking about the punishment. It's a punishment spirit right there. And I'm just asking you, will you help me? Can you help me do this? And then we like work on the other things. Will you help me?
I would like to help you work on the other things, and then we would go.
So you're saying,
I'm saying that we should start on those steps that you identified, and let's work forward toward other things.
so your answer is no, you would not make the motion?
No.
Okay. All right. What about you? Mrs. Davis? Well, you know what? Please forgive me, because I have what they call senior citizen moments. I can get a little sentence, but I get what I was ready to say. I had walked around, my back, put down my key. I do have those happen, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So what about?
Gentlemen, bring some clarity to this. Ms. Munder has accurately quoted Arkansas Code Annotated, section 1558-303. In that provision, in section A, it does say the city council may limit their spending authority. The city council in 2009 passed an ordinance, and it's based in Arkansas Code Annotated section 1458-305, which is titled Payment of Claims. It reads more particularly in saying that in a city of first class, city of second class, or incorporated town, the mayor or his duly authorized representative may approve or disapprove for payment out of funds previously appropriated for that purpose any legal claims asserted or brought against the city or town. Section B says the municipal governing body shall, by ordinance, establish in connection a maximum amount and the payment or disapproval of such bills, debts, or liability exceeding that amount shall require the confirmation of the governing body. So 2 statutes later, what the legislature says is, city council, you establish a maximum amount. We know we're authorizing this amount, but city council, you have a duty to establish a maximum amount for your local city. And they did that at $5,000. I've said many times, I thought that was too low. I have privately had conversations with many people at this table, and what they tend to tell me over the course of these years, why don't you talk to the mayor? If he complies first, then we're willing to work with him. Now, I don't know if he's ever going to say it tonight, but privately, Mr. Monday, I've been working behind the scenes, talking to several of them, and they come back and say, well, it's the mayor that keeps going forward. We're willing to work with him when he first shows that he's willing to follow the ordinances. Now, I say that not to disparage the mayor or anyone at council, but here are the ordinances that we have in place. The ordinance number 10-2009 quotes those 2 statutes in particular. It says, in accordance with Arkansas Code Legislative Section 1458-303, the city council hereby established the person's authority mayor without the need of engaging in competitive bidding is $7,500. The mayor of the city of Helena-West or his duly authorized representative shall follow the bidding procedure in Arkansas Code Annotated 1458-303. It further states in section C, in accordance with Arkansas Code Annotated section 305, the city council hereby establishes the mayor may not enter into a contract that exceeds $5,000 without the city council approval. The city council further established that the mayor may not enter into a serial contract or circumvent the intent of this ordinance. A serial contract is referred to in here. Herein is dividing a larger contract into a series of contracts to lower the cap of $5,000. Now, it also says a serial contract includes dividing the job into phases to lower the $5,000. A serial contract includes any contract where the entire scope of work to be performed is in excess of $5,000. Now, the purpose of bidding is for the city to get the benefit of its bargain. And when we look at a particular thing, whether it's cutting trees, whether it's paving streets, whether it's buying equipment, if the city were to let bids and do so and give it to one contractor, they may get a better deal. You may have, because many corporations, what they work with is they need cash flow. And so one issue you may have is, say we want to tear down 20 houses. If the city says the bid's going to be, we're willing to pay X amount for those houses. If one contractor give them, they all may bid to try and tear down all those houses. So the intent overall is for the city to save money and for the city to have a better benefited bargain. The statutes and the ordinance impose a duty on the mayor to do so. Now, the mayor quite appropriately said in ordinance 24-206 is a purchase order procedure, and that he cannot sign checks without himself. He has to sign checks with others. His department here is supposed to make sure the money is there. City treasurer is supposed to make sure the process is followed, and all those things are supposed to happen. Any purchase order, any contract is supposed to be reviewed by the city attorney. And so contracts technically are not valid with the city if they haven't been going through that process. But we're here today, we're here in this position, and it's one of those things. Ms. Crockett stated earlier that she would not give more money because there hadn't been a willingness to comply. Part of the issue, I think there has to be a give and take on both sides. I think 5,000 too low. I've said that many times ever since I was city attorney. And every time the pushback I get is, listen, when the mayor starts, I've talked to them privately, Mr. Monday, who said when the mayor starts to follow the ordinance, we will do so. And even some council members on the table said, what you're talking to me about is an illegal act of the mayor, because he's spending beyond his authority, and the government says, the Constitution says you cannot spend money that's not properly approved by the city council. And so it's a little larger in perspective than just the $5,000. There have to be compliance on both sides. And so the one thing about it is, I'm not here to advocate for the council. I'm not trying to go against the mayor or anything like that. I'm just telling the private conversations I've had with people in the room. That's all I'm saying. So in the spirit of candor, I'm talking about that. Now, one of the things about this that always bothers me is many times I learn of things right here at the table. And as city attorney, one of the things about it is I'm guarded in what I say, because what the city attorney says can be binding on the city. Because there are some things that I will not say because I don't want to create an issue for the city, such as lawsuits for illegal exactions and et cetera. So I am at times guarded in what I say. But with that, I yield to the mayor or anyone else who has anything to say. I just wanted to state what the city ordinances say, what the policies say, and as you go forward.
May I ask you a question? Okay, I understand all that, whatever, all you said, I know that, I understand it. But what I'm asking, do you understand what I am trying to do? Do you understand that?
I understand totally what you said.
Okay. I understand. What about, but I want to also find out, I've heard from two councilmen, Mrs. Davis, what do you think? Can you help me?
I can't help you with that. And if you sat at this table and knew the things that we knew, you wouldn't do it either.
Well, I can be a forgiving person. What about you, Mr. Anthony?
Yeah. We talked about this before tonight. I told you I would keep an open mind.
Yes.
My mind is still open. I can't lose what I already know, though. The first thing is you saying that it's punitive. Let's be honest. There's 4 people who sit at this table who it could not be punitive for these 4 people because they were not here. Now, Mr. St. Columbia and I were here when it was 20,000. We were here when it was reduced to 5, and it's remained there. So we've been here through the entire history of this process. He voted to reduce it. I voted to leave it as it was. Maybe the better question is, did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish? And if you change your mind, enlighten us and let us know why it should go back up. And you haven't stayed in your position, Mr. St. Clair. I'm just saying, we were here. And if I think, let me finish. Sure. If I think it should stay at $5,000, maybe you should be asking me why I changed my mind. You would probably get a lot of information from both of us. But before we have a discussion, we have to really, the foundation for this that you laid, the foundation for this discussion is flawed. It's flawed because you make allegations of micromanaging. You hold the mayor as the CEO of the city in higher regard than the law. We are equal branches of government. State law gives us the authority over 2 things: money and property. Money
and property. All of those things that it gives him are outlined. That's his backyard. But ours is money and property. Money. So it says, city council, you may manage his spending authority. It's not micromanaging when you operate within the legal authority given to you by law. It's not micromanaging. You're operating within your legal authority, period. So to call it micromanaging is outright wrong. He gets to tell that officer in the back where to go and when to do it. He gets to tell the sanitation street director where to go and when to do it. He gets to tell the fireman where to go and when to do it. He has a chief of staff. He gets to tell her where to go and when to do it. We don't. So he has to come to us and ask us if we can pay, if he can pay him. That's what the law gives us. So to cast it as micromanaging is an absolutely wrong foundation to even start this discussion on. It's not micromanaging. And I understand that you want to end what you perceive as bickering at the table. I practice law for a living. There are real productive conversations that can be had when people are passionate about what they believe in and bring it to the table. Now, I believe we ought to always leave our personal attacks on people and talk about business. Stick to the facts. Leave your feelings at home. Let's talk about business. I say that all the time. Leave your feelings at home. Let's talk about business. And so when I look at this issue that you present, my question is and was, what issue are you trying to resolve? Let me finish. I want everybody to hear because we've had this discussion before. Yeah. What issue are you trying to resolve by saying raise the spending limits? What issue are we trying to resolve?
So you don't know what I'm trying to do is get the spending limit to $35,000.
You think that if it's $35,000, people at this table won't have disagreements anymore?
No, I'm not saying that.
Well,
and plus, you're saying I don't have time. I don't want to prolong this, but I've been through this for years, dealing with the city council and the mayor. And when you say my argument is flawed, I do know that it does get to be personal. It may not be on you, but it is personal, and it is what people trying to maneuver the mayor. I know that for a fact. And so that has happened through the years. I'm not saying who here, but it has happened through the years. But what I want to know, here's what I want to ask you. Are you going to help me?
I wasn't finished talking, Mr. Money.
Okay.
Because when I said
you asked me a question and we answered it.
That's fine. I'm not finished talking.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said your foundation was flawed because you present the need to make the change based on some false premises. That's what I'm saying when I say your foundation is flawed. I think what you see, here's what I would say. If you just want to come in and say, hey, I think it would be great if you raise his spending limits, and maybe it would help everybody to get along. I don't agree that it will help everybody to get along. We can, that's fine. That's a proper presentation of what you're trying to do.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say, I know you didn't say that. What you said is that we try, it's an effort to micromanage. It's an effort to be punitive. No, it's the law that's been in place. When he signed his name on the paper and said, I want to be the mayor of Helena-West, these spending limits were in place. When he said, I want to be the mayor, the policy that dictates how he's supposed to handle money was already in place. This is the job that he fought and got elected to. So what you're telling us is that he's being punished because he got the thing that he wanted. I don't understand that.
Mr. Money, if I could just, because we have a long agenda. I recognize before you sit down. I want to make, I started this out by saying this doesn't need to be about me. It turned into me. I don't agree with most of what's been said about me, but I don't want it to devolve into that. It doesn't, you can't say, Mr. Etherly, that it's about the law, not about what these four people thought, because they weren't here. It's what Mr. At the same time say it's about the law. The law is what's punitive, not who was here when it was passed. The law is punitive. No, sir. Mr. Etherly. You just made an example of how you it shouldn't be. If he's saying it shouldn't be, that's all. I'm saying one of the first council, not the first, but one of the more recent council meetings I came to before I became mayor, Mayor Hollowell was mayor, y'all were arguing about, I think it was moving expense, was $5,000. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't a serial contract. It was the fact that you had not approved the moving expense. I don't know, and I'm not going to rehash it. I wasn't the mayor. I don't know what happened. But I was sitting out there where they are, and it seemed to me that we spent, the city, the council, the mayor, everybody spent an hour talking about moving expense for department head that was recently hired, and y'all were offended that you weren't notified about it, or that you felt like the mayor had done something deceptive behind your back in order to lure this department head here or whatever it was. I wasn't quite sure what you were arguing about, but you spent an hour on it. It's not so much that we disagree, it's that we disagree about such minuscule issues when we have such major issues to disagree about. We ought to be disagreeing about the best way to tear down all these houses. We ought to be disagreeing or agreeing about how to clean out all these ditches, how to do something about all these wild dogs attacking people in the streets. That's what we should be spending our time on. Not whether somebody gets a $5,000 moving bonus to move here to be a director of a department. That's his point. Not whether we should get along, but if we're going to argue about issues, argue about big issues, not small, minuscule, micromanaging issues. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Mr. Money, but I say that not as a mayor, I say that as a citizen. I disagree with most of what you said, Ms. Ford. I asked you to go to dinner before I even got sworn in to ask you what you wanted us to work on. I made you chairman of the personnel committee and asked you to appoint your own members. That never happened. I asked each one of you to chair committees and asked each one of you to appoint your own members. That did not happen. So we started out in the very first meeting with me asking you to work with me as a team, and you rejected that. So don't argue that communication is a foundation that was never laid. It was a foundation that was denied because of the history of conflict between council members and mayors over everything, whether it's important or whether it's not. Mr. Mundy is saying if we're going to argue, if we're going to have these discussions, make them about something that matters to the people we work for. And I agree with him. That's in my comment.
Since you
Mr. Mundy wanted to be recognized. Mr. Mundy wanted to be recognized. No, sir. Mr. Mundy wanted to be recognized, and then I'll recognize Mr. Evans. I wanted to do Mr. Mundy. And then Mr. Evans.
Did you tell me that you're not going to do what I suggested? Did you say that?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, I just wondered, are you going to?
Why can't for the mayor? But see, we talked about it. You've never come in here and criticized the mayor. Never come in here and criticize.
Oh, you want to bet how many times I've criticized the mayor through the years? I haven't been here as much as I used to. Please. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, why won't you follow the ordinances that are in place now?
Well,
I'm talking about money. I'm not talking about all this.
We've been audited every year. Not one time have I been cited for not following an ordinance about contracts. Mr. Evans, I'm trying to answer your question. What the disagreement about is what is a contract and what is a serial contract. That's the disagreement.
There's no disagreement about that.
That is, the law you cited is correct, but it has to be a contract and it has to be a serial contract. And let me give you an example you gave of trees. If we have 10 trees in a right of way blocking traffic and we need somebody to cut them right now, we don't have a tree service. We have to hire somebody to do that. And then a week from now or 3 days from now, we got 10 more trees that need to be cut down. That's not a serial contract. It's not a serial contract because, no, it's not, because it wasn't broken into 2 parts. Per your description of a serial contract, it was not deliberately broken into 2 parts. No, sir. It was not deliberately broken into 5. No, sir. It was not broken deliberately into 2 parts of $5,000 each. Number one. Number two, you have to immediately remove those trees so people in the public and the safety can be involved. And if we have to call a council meeting or we have to bid it out because we have to move trees after a natural disaster because people can't get out of their houses,
then there's something wrong with that ordinance. I don't actually disagree with your ordinance. I don't disagree with that's the state law. I don't disagree with, I knew that when I ran for this office. But what you say is a contract and what you say is a serial contract are not things that we agree on. And if, and no ma'am, Ms. Crockett, I called a special meeting because we had an open sewer leak and I asked you to support fixing it immediately, and you denied that, and the state health or ADQ said in writing that you have no choice under state and federal clean water laws. And your excavator was appropriated, it was authorized, and it was ordered by the city council. It was appropriated and authorized when it was ordered. And per the municipal league advice, we couldn't unorder it. We'd already obligated it. We had many other things that you approved that we did not order because it was not ordered yet, because you defunded it. You unauthorized it. You unappropriated. But the excavator was already ordered and obligated by this city.
That it had not been ordered.
If you had already appropriated and authorized it.
After we revoked it, when it ordered it then.
But it's because it was already ordered. If I may, mayor, no ma'am, the city clerk does not order equipment, the mayor does, and you never asked me whether I ordered it. And the answer to that question is yes. It was the only piece of equipment, but it was ordered. The rest of the equipment was not ordered because you unappropriated it. But that was appropriated, it was authorized, and it was ordered, and it was too late to take it back. And those are the facts.
If I may.
Regardless of how you characterize it, those are the facts.
If I may.
And the bottom line is, you want to make political arguments, you want to gang up on me because I'm by myself, and you're a group of folks that are against me, but you were against Holloway, you were against Arnell Willis, you were against James Valley, and you will be against the next mayor, and any council will be. And if you don't raise this limit, you're going to have the same problems, us bickering about small, petty, little, minuscule things that don't matter. We're audited by the state anyway. There is there are plenty of ways to check what the city spends money on. The audit is the number one way, but I can't even sign a check by myself even under $5,000. And I have never been cited on a serial contract by legislative audit, never. So the question is, what is a contract and what is a serial contract? And if you're ordering 10 trees to be done under $5,000 because they're in the right of way and you got cars of people that can't get to your house, it's not a serial contract if 2 days later you also ask them to do 10 more trees.
It is a serial contract. If I may.
You have to ask another vendor to do it because.
Wait.
That is the night of the whole thing.
If I may.
And if you don't change this ordinance the way Mr. Money has recommended, you're going to continue to have it the same way you had it with Mr. Hollowell and all the previous mayors, and you're going to continue to have it with all future mayors. You need to be arguing about something important instead of turf, instead of what your pride and all these other issues. We're audited.
If I may.
Raise the limit so you can argue about something important to the people of this city.
Continue to have what, please, for clarity? You say you'll continue to have it. Have what? What was the have it?
You're going to continue to fight about minuscule, minor issues when the public wants us to be talking about or arguing about important, bigger issues. Now, whether or not this ordinance is exactly how Mr. Valley read it, I agree with him. But what we disagree about is what is a contract and what is a serial contract. In legislative audit, not you, Ms. Crockett, legislative audit is the final arbitrator of whether, well, you're not my parent either. You're not my mother. You're not my mother. You don't order me to clean my room, Mr. Monk. I'm trying to explain, if you don't already know, that state audit is who tells us whether or not we did what we said we would do. And not one time have they cited me for that, ever.
If I may.
I just need to know three more things, and I'm done. Please.
Ms. Wonder, wait just a second. Now, as it relates to the trees, what I said earlier, and I will emphasize again, The benefit of the bargain is for the city to be tree cutting and picking up trees as one mass contract, and you call one contractor and get it done. There's a gentleman in this room right now has a contract through all the bridges in the state of Arkansas. And the one thing about it is when the legislature, this body, says, let's bid this, let's award the contracts, we won't have to call person A, person B, person C, person D. We will receive the benefit of a bargain, and that's the purpose of it. Now, a contract, as city attorney, I define what a contract is related to the city, and there's a purchase order ordinance that tells you that any expenditure of the city, we engage in contracts. Understand something, if we can be sued for it, it's contract. It's one of those things that in layman's terms, that if you go out and make a promise to someone and you have a set of promises and there's a payment involved in it, is a contract. And these documents, all these document contracts, there's supposed to be a purchase order that goes with all of them. That's just to answer that limited question. Now, I'm not an auditor. I can't tell you why they haven't cited him or cited some other man. I'm just telling you what the ordinance says. Again, we reach this impasse all the time, but by example, the last council meeting, it is a contract for us to rent those bypasses that we're spending $80,000 a month on. I should have been made aware of those bypasses that we're spending $80,000 a month on. I was not made aware, the council wasn't made aware until last month last council meeting when they approved those things. That was a serial contract, a series of rentals of bypasses that was never approved by the city council. And they told her $80,000 a month. That is clear. And that is well over $5,000. That's well over $35,000. And so it's one of those things that has to be a give and take. Yes, the council probably should raise it above 5,000, but they also, this council, what has happened over and over and over again, I could go over these things over and over again, say the same things over and over again. And Mr. Mundy, I understand what your position is, and I understand that you believe that the mayor is in charge. I agree with Mr. Anthony that both sides have a distinct role. As it relates to finance, the council is the final arbiter of finance, period. The mayor can't spend a dime until the council says it's appropriated. And the mayor can't spend a dime above what they say he can spend. It is illegal for him to do so. And so those are the issues. So there has to be a give and take on both sides.
I understand that, and I do know that there needs to be a mechanism put in place to deal with this. But I need around 3 more just to give me the answer. So what I'm asking you, Attorney Ethan, are you going to help me with this?
What I'm gonna help you to do is this. If we can talk about the real issues of spending that have come into play based on the $5,000 spending limit, the real issues that have been caused, that have taken place, and not hypotheticals about if this happens and that happens, but the day-to-day issues that have taken place, there were real issues where $5,000 caused the mayor to actually not be able to do something that he needed to do, that he didn't have time to get city council approval on. All of those things, if we can talk about the real issues and what would have helped, then we can address real problems. I'm ready to address real problems.
So your answer is no?
No, my answer is yes. But let's talk about real issues. Let's not talk about hypotheticals. Let's not talk about false micromanaging, all that crap. Let's talk about real things that have to happen on the ground.
I can talk about real issues. I can talk about what I know to be facts in terms of micromanaging. I can talk about all of that, and I'm not saying everybody's doing that, but I just wanted to know that. So what you're saying is that you're not saying no, you just want to talk about some issues.
I want it to be real, but see because micromanaging, you can't operate under your legal authority and consider micromanaging.
Well, you can use that as a tool. It can be used as a tool.
But listen, it's a tool for performing the duty that we were elected to perform, which is to manage money.
Right, but that's a thing that I can't get into, and I don't want to get into it right now.
Let me tell you why we talked about some issues, let's say off the record. And it's present right here in front of you right now. The flaws are present right here in front of you. You may not know that you're seeing it, but it's right in front of your face right now. See, we could, if state law allowed us to have $100,000 spending limit, What he's telling you is from the table, he's leaning over into the microphone and telling you he doesn't agree about contracts. He doesn't agree about all of these things that are factual issues. So he will run right through any stop sign that you put in place. If it was 5, if it was 10, if it was $2 million, he would figure out a way that he didn't consider the contract.
I would say it's speculative.
Okay, now, okay, hold on. Okay.
You don't know that. And the truth is, the final arbitrator is not the city council, it's the auditors. And the auditors have yet to find one instant of any contract or any serial contract that has been broken by this administration since I've been mayor, and it wasn't done by previous administrations, and it probably won't be done by successor administrations, but you will continue to argue about small purchases, small things, when we need to be talking about the bigger issues. It's not about 100,000 or 35,000. It's about talking about issues that matter. And with inflation and with issues like trees, when you have national emergencies or raw sewage going into people's waste stream, then it's an emergency. You need a city that can take action. Our community wants a city to take action, not sit here and bicker about a $5,000 moving budget for a department head, because you think that a mayor might have been deceptive and not told you everything. That's not what this city cares about. What they care about are their ditches, their houses, the housing, the blight, the jobs, the crime. That's what they care about. That's what we should be talking about. And if we disagree, we do, but it'll be on honorable terms, not on some small turf issue, and that's what this amounts to. Not one time have the auditors of the state of Arkansas ever found me in violation of any local ordinance about contracts or sealed contracts. Not one time, and yet I have to hear about it every single council meeting. I want to hear from Mr. St. Please, I want to hear from Mr. St.
I've been recognized, I've been sitting here and let everybody talk.
Mr. Mundy was next, and then Mr. Mundy was interrupted by Mr. Everett. Have you please, and then Mr. Franklin. And Mr. Mundy, please, I want to hear from Mr. St. Columbia. He's a veteran, I want to hear from him about the proposal that I made and what he thinks real quickly, and then I want to hear from you. Well, okay, what about you, Mr. St. Columbia?
If you had an opportunity to speak.
I don't matter. You welcome.
We're going around in the circle.
They turned the video off. Okay, nobody see.
Mr. Mundy.
Will you help me? Will you vote in favor of it?
Mr. Mundy, I've served under many mayors in the past. And I probably was one that put in place the $5,000 spending, but you got to understand when that happened many years ago. That happened when the dollar could buy a lot more too. I can remember buying a loaf of bread for 20 cents. I can remember buying a gallon of gas for 35 cents. And today, $5,000 is not a lot of money to have to give the mayor to spend on cutting down trees out in the street or cleaning up in the community. Yes, I will support your proposal of raising that. Maybe not to 35,000, but a reasonable amount of money that can be supervised by the council and can be, of course, anything he does, he can't spend without another signature on that check, but that we be kept abreast of it. And I think we need to increase that amount of money, yes, and I would support your proposal of increasing it to what amount, maybe, I don't know, maybe 35,000 is a reasonable amount. I'd have to look at that. But I know this, 5,000 is certainly not enough for the mayor to have to use today because of the economy is how it's increased. Now, I would support your proposal.
We're trying to get everybody on record.
You're asking but I would have to look at what the other details as well. The council is here to approve ordinances, resolutions, handle the money of the city, properties that the city owns and controls. But we must work with the mayor. And I've sat here for an hour and 5 minutes and listened to what I have to listen to every time we have a meeting. All these programs, and it's good that we have a healthy conversation, but we should not scream and yell at each other or threaten at each other. You surprised me tonight with some of the things that have happened in the past. I was unaware of some of the council members, but mine has been mostly peaceful over the last years. And it's been a pleasure working with Mr. Etherly, although we agree on a lot of things, we disagree as well, but we don't yell at each other, and I don't at any of the other council members. I think that our community, we must put first the thoughts of our community and what is best for our community. We're elected by the people, for the people, and we must spend their money. That's what we have to spend. It's not our money to spend. I served for over 25 years as a CEO. Also, as you have, and I understand, $5,000 is certainly not enough money for a mayor to have to spend on emergency cases and things of that nature. Yes, I would support your proposal, but I'd have to look in more detail as to the amounts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you on the record. Will you help me? Will you do what I'm asking you to do?
I got this, because I was trying to speak before. It amazes me how people sit at this table, sit here and holler about spending and spending. When we vote on something, they never show up. But when it's time to come pick up a check, they're the first one down in the city clerk's office to pick up a check. Let's go back. Remember when you see, this is what gets me. People come here because they have an agenda. I don't have an agenda. My agenda is for the people. But what bothers me is this. You can go back to when, remember you were off the air, and the city council said, bring Mr. Monday back, bring Mr. Monday back. He didn't want you. He didn't want us to even air our meetings. Oh, wait, no. You're going to get the same respect you did in St. Columbia. Let me speak freely. Because Ms. Crockett spoke, and I let Ms. Crockett speak before he did it. Not Ms. Crockett. I had it before after you did it. I didn't have that opportunity. I've been sitting here for an hour watching you give a sermon. Mr. Monday, I respect you. Oh, wait. Please, sir. I respect you. But ain't nowhere in the world that we're going to work backwards. You mean to tell me that we're going to reward somebody, hey, I'm going to give you $35,000 and you can't spend $7,000 or $5,000 correctly? No. See, my answer is, I don't understand how you let Mr. St. Columbia speak freely. When I speak, you want to interrupt. No. But you did too. But give me the same kindness. I don't understand. No. My answer is what Mr. Edgar's answer is. That's my answer. Because see, every time I try to talk, it's not fair to me. You talk for a whole hour. I sit here patient for 35 minutes, didn't interrupt you or nothing. But as soon as I open my mouth, I'm saying what is true.
We're talking to the city councilman, have nothing to do with what we're talking about.
I'm just saying how big, well, yeah, but you know what, you have to bring up, when this man just got to be the mayor 3 years ago. We have to go back to James and anybody else for this, but we're talking about right now. I can't attest to what Mr. Monday did because I was right here. I can attest about Orlando Willis and Jay Holloway. One thing Jay Holloway and Orlando Willis had before they spent something, they came to this body to get accident. They didn't go buy $100,000 excavator and say, hey, you gonna fix it. So you, sir, should have came here before now. You came with Mr. Willis, with Mr. Valley. You came with an alligator for Mr. Valley because Mr. Valley could not do his job. You talking about an altercation, it was an altercation with Mr. St. Columbia when Mr. Valley tried to do something, and he said, hey, I don't really come across, you know what? You weren't here to fight for James then, but now Kevin is here. You want to say, oh, let's give him. His term is over with. The people have been spoken. Wait a minute, because what you going to do, this is what Mr. Monday going to come here and do. He's going to get a campaign. He's going to run it every day, every hour about this body not coming to do something he wants done. If you had an agenda, if you want somebody to do something, you bring all those folks with you. All 6 of us are present. All 6 of us agreeing that, hey, the mayor cannot follow policy. There's no reason. The mayor has not given us a reason to say, hey, trust me. Jay Holloway, we trusted. When Jay won something, this body has met, Mr. Valley, am I correct? With this body, since this mayor has been president, has met more than any city council to pass anything that he's wanted, anything to make this city better. We have had budget workshops time after time after time to tell the mayor, this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do. But for now to come advocate for us and say, okay, let's give him $35,000 when we got it. The auditors, he said the auditors have not cited him. Well, it's like my answer, the country short because I know I'm gonna get added. My answer is what Mr. F answer is. My answer is what Mr. St. Columbia answer is. I got those two.
I don't want to bring up, I could bring up roll call on your. I don't want to do that, and I don't want you doing that. I don't want you doing that.
That's not what you're here for. I gave you my answer, and it's short answer. My answer is what John Anthony is. My answer is what Joe St. Columbia says.
So it's over with. Okay.
I don't know what it is.
I just want to go on the record, and you say what I'm going to be doing. You don't know what I'm going to do. I know what I can do. Okay, I understand. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to speak, because y'all represent the Lord.
If I may.
This stuff is wrong, and if I have to have him to show a sign, I will do it. And I'm just telling you that some things is wrong on everybody's part.
Don't use the Lord to whip us with.
No, I'm not whipping you with the Lord, brother.
God does not operate.
Okay, I'm through. Thank you very much. I'm through.
Mr. Powell, you recognize. Mr. Anthony said a very salient point earlier. I think there needs to be an informed discussion. As it relates to expenditure that's questionable above $5,000. We have all those laid out so they can have a budget workshop, work through that, and get that issue resolved so that people can then do what Mr. Monday wants, Mr. Ethelyn wants. Mr. Ethelyn says, I will not support it unless I make an informed decision. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what I'm hearing him say. And so the only way you can make an informed.
Let's have an informed discussion about it. Okay, Mr. St. Columbia.
So the issue, let's back up. The administration, because all three of them are the check signers. Any check that's been written over $5,000, even whether you consider it a serial contract or not, needs to be brought to the table, and so that they can discuss it and they can make an informed decision. Because they may be making a mile out of molehill, or they may just be seeing the tip of an iceberg. And so I don't know, because I'm not looking at it. And I think there needs to be a informed decision. Let's get beyond this issue. Let's resolve it. Let's go forward. I've always thought that the 5,000 was restricted, not because it was my brother James, or not because of any other mayor. I think there are a lot of things to do. But I've always advised every mayor that bring it for the council, bring it for the council, bring it for the council. If I were the mayor, I would be having meetings every day until I got stuff approved. That would be my approach. But of course, that's me. I'm city attorney. I have no intention to be mayor. I would never run for mayor of this city. And so my whole thing that I'm telling you all is let's move beyond the impasse at some point. We defined and redefined, and we have 80 pages of agenda left.
Mr. Lundy, thank you very much. You said it. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've done what I set out to do, and now we'll see. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your passion and a very animated discussion that succeeded it. So thank you. Next item on the agenda, and I don't know if we have anybody here present to discuss it, but I will if it's appropriate. Is a Juneteenth celebration permit. Mr. Franklin moves adoption of the Juneteenth celebration permit. Ms. Evergene Ford seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion?
I like to thank those people who have worked on this so diligently to get this done. This was a national holiday. I want to tell them thank you and look forward to seeing you next year.
Ms. Franklin, any other comments, questions? If not, call the roll.
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Parker? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
St.
Yes.
6 yes.
Motion approved. And I don't see our guests from the health department. If they're out in the hall or some, I don't guess they made it. But so we'll move on to the first item on the action agenda, bulletproof vests. And if you want to come up, resident
talk to the counselor and be available for questions, but I'll try my best to explain it. Bulletproof vests have to meet certain standards. We have 6 months to meet, and please correct me if I say this incorrectly, but we have 6 months, January 1st, basically, right? To meet the new standards for bulletproof vests in the United States. It takes about that long to order them and receive them. So the police chief is asking that we approve a motion. There are proposals attached allowing us to enter into order in a bulletproof vest so that we will get them in time to be in compliance with federal law.
How many vests are they asking for? What is the total price of the vest?
There's your estimates in your packet. Well, you can appropriate it.
My question for Lieutenant West, Ms. Sadie Smith. My private question, can you come to the mic, please? I'm sorry, Mayor, but that's the question, because I need to have clarity. Proposal 1, proposal 2, there's a slight difference in the one. Which one are you actually acting for? Are you asking proposal 1?
Two different ones for you to consider if you were gonna approve.
What are you asking the body for?
They both do the same thing. We need level 2s. The issue is, we're coming up on the point where they're the expiration date and, per standard, yes, ma'am.
I'm saying, but practically, what I'm saying is, you're saying you have one that's 10,000, one that's 9,000.
Yes, those are both, we checked into, and they would both do the same thing, but one, it's just whichever one you approve, we would hope, the better quality one would probably be the 10,000 one, but if that's an alternative.
So you actually body approve the 10,000?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't have an ordinance this evening, but the council can approve, and I'll bring the ordinance next time for way compared to bidding. I believe that Mr. Etherly is interested in going for.
Just trying to ask this question. I know the last time that you got this, that's a grant. So we can, library, is that available again? Do you know?
No, it's not.
Then come back and wait.
How long have y'all known that y'all was gonna have to have these vests?
Yes, they have an expiration date, like I said, we ran it by the mayor when we were approaching the expiration date. You're supposed to change them out every 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And the reason
For this year, and we just said. Okay, but I'm saying they expired January 20.
Yeah, the reason we're doing this.
2023.
Yes, ma'am.
It takes 6 months to get them.
Yes, ma'am.
But you just bring it tonight. If it's not passed tonight, we might not get them back January 1st of 2023. My question is, and that goes back to lack of communication. I know that y'all knew that it was gonna take a while. Why we didn't hear anything about this prior to this?
It was just brought to his attention by the new administration,
About this?
by the new administration, under Mayfield's administration.
To answer your question, I found out about it about a week or so ago. We put it on the first available agenda after I learned about it. They were notified, I think, by an agency.
Yeah, by an inventory person.
Yeah,
Who's in charge of it.
let us know that it's gonna take about 6 months. We probably ought to get this ordered in order to remain in compliance January 1st. They brought that to my attention a week, 2 weeks ago at the most. And so we had to put it to top of the next agenda.
No, that's not how the prime discussion, the discussion was, you can approve this tonight, I have to bring the ordinance back next council meeting. Because we're talking about 2 different things, it's over $5,000, and so we can approve the appropriation for it.
Next meeting. Necessary. Civil attorney.
$10,000 or $9,000.
$10,000, the second, the one you chose, the one they chose. That was number 2, wasn't it? Yeah, that one.
The second one, the next motion that we approve, up to $10,800 for a new vest and allow the police department to go ahead and order those vests for a competitive bidding. This is the next, comparative with the next. Mr. Furman, is there a second? I know, but the way I'm asking some questions here, I'm trying to take a motion Did I say the motion correctly?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
I'm asking this.
Mr. Franklin, please stop interrupting. Is there a second to the motion? Is the motion on the floor? If there's no second, motion dies for lack of second. Mr. Franklin, now you can ask your question.
Mr. St. Columbia, I heard you say my motion because I was only asking the question, was it number one? I do apologize that your motion failed, but I'll make a motion to approve number one. Mr. St. Columbia, do me the honor of second that motion. I apologize, I'm not seconding your motion, and somebody would just listen.
Mr. Franklin, there's council meetings, and you have to follow the procedure. There is a motion on the floor. Now, Mr. Franklin just made a motion to approve an appropriation for up to $2,719.55, which he mentioned as proposal number one for bulletproof vests for the police department. So that they may will order the vest and ask the city attorney to approve a competitive bidding ordinance for the next city council meeting. Is that the correct motion, Mr. Franklin? Is there a second?
I'll second it if that's the same motion that I made.
It's the identical same motion. Mr. St. Columbia seconds the motion. Are there any questions or comments about the motion? Ms. Crockett?
Yes, I have a question, because in the prior, Mr. St. Columbia, you said $10,800. Now you're saying $10,719. So you need, that was the only question that was asked.
That's because he specifically mentioned proposing.
Proposal one said 700, but you said 800. You're not listening, man.
Ms. Crockett, another example of unnecessary bickering. Okay, the motion is on the floor. Are there any other questions about the motion?
I need to know if the court, I asked the question.
And I made the motion that Mr. Franklin made, we need a second. I'm $10,719.55. Proposal number one.
Can you read the motion?
What is your question?
Can the clerk?
Ms. Clerk, read the motion before the council.
This ain't wrong.
Mr. Franklin, second by Mr. St. Columbia.
No, can you read the motion, Ms. Crocket's question?
The motion is to the city attorney to prepare an ordinance to waive bidding for the purchase of bulletproof vests for the police department at a cost of $10,719.55.
It also was to appropriate.
And to appropriate the funds.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments about the motion? Call the roll.
St. Columbia.
Yes.
Crockett. Ford.
Yes.
Etherly.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Franklin. Crockett.
Yes.
6 yes.
Next time we're going to do is so then we want to get those ordered right away so we can get them by January 1st. The issue before the council is once again to match the $50,000 grant offered by the Bissell Pet Foundation. And I'm not going to waste any time discussing this. Is there a motion to appropriate $50,000 from the city of Helena-West to match $50,000 for the Bissell Pet Foundation offered to grant the city $50,000 for an animal shelter? Is there a motion?
I so move.
Mr. St. Columbia moves that we approve a motion, we appropriate $50,000 to match the $50,000 grant funded by and offered by the Bissell Pet Foundation to the city of Helena-West for the construction of an animal control shelter. Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion on the table. All right. Motion dies for lack of a second. Ms. Franklin.
Before we understand your motion. Yeah, I'm trying to read too, so you can second this when I get to. You said that $50,000, right?
Yes, sir.
So we're gonna get
$50,000 from the Bissell Pet Foundation matched by the city, $50,000.
I've been in touch with Mariana, Dog Pound to see how they have done theirs. I'm willing to do that, but I want to make sure that we people are willing to donate. I got like $20,000 that people are going to donate. I want the city to put up just whatever half, so we can match this. I got some people who have contacted me today, got letters that I'm going to bring to you. That we will do this, but we want to kind of mimic what Mariana has. We want to have something for 14 dogs. They can be rescued. We'll talk to Meals on Wheels. I've been in touch with Lands Gallery on some things. I think this should be instrumental in this. But I do want to do this, but I want to make sure, Mr. St. Columbia, that we have some people going to donate some money that could help us get this done. I would like for us also in my motion that we get in that I get the blueprints from Mariana, Dog Pound, and see how they did theirs, and we can work from there. So I will, with the donation that will come to the city, I would like to make sure to take some of the load off the city. We put this money into an account so that we can get this done. So I move that we do the $50,000 matching, but donation will come in to help us get some of the pain of this $50,000. I would also like to get the blueprint from Mariana when they send all this stuff in, so we can see how they worked, and we can go from there. So I move that we match the $50,000, but there are donations that I'll be bringing into the city to help take some of that $50,000 we have to pay.
Make sure I say this correctly.
Mr. Valley, you give us look.
Well, hold on, what's the motion for? Hold on. Mr. Franklin moved that we match $50,000 Bissell grant with $50,000 from the city, provided that we contact or include Mariana and Arkansas Animal Control Facility, and those, I'm going to add a little bit, those who constructed it for their blueprints, include them in the bid, or at least request and ask if they're interested in bidding. Whoever did that, and I agree that that would be an appropriate structure if we're able to do it. But anyway, to include, I got off the record too, but anyway, to match $50,000 from Bissell with city for $50,000, provided with the stipulation that we invite those involved in the Mariana Animal Control Shelter construction to participate and to bid on the construction, and that we invite others to donate funds to this effort.
Yes.
Is that say it?
Yes, sir. Add the county into it. Add Clark Hall into this, the county, because we take dogs from the county as well. So add them into this as well. See if you can invite Clark Hall into this. We'll put it all together.
Sure.
My practical question figure out why was.
How to do this, Valley? Just let's go ahead and just match the grant, and whatever whatever donation I get out, it's gonna be made payable to the City Hall for the New Humane Society. Let's just go that way. But I would like to, Mr. Mayor, I think you've been key instrument if you had went over there and talked to Mr. Hall and asked him to donate something too, because they could have gave $25,000 to help us out. But I'll do that for you. I'll go meet with Mr. Hall tomorrow.
That'd be even better.
What you said about contacting Meals on Wheels and Leslie Galloway, and is this going to be a recurring donation? Is it going to, what's the $50,000?
This is the $50,000 one-time donation to match this grant.
What happens next? How does the shelter keep operating?
At that time, hopefully, the mayor is the CEO of the city, and he could work out a plan and bring it back to us. I just want to get the ball rolling and invite some people to the table that could help us run this. I just think that once we get this started, there are different ways that we can help. Because, like I said, the mayor, and they're not trying to throw stones in, but Walmart has reached out, the Walton Foundation. A lot of other places are willing to help us. We just have to make the start. I believe that I got a call today that somebody would donate $5,000. So that put me in a position to say, hey, I can use some of my resources and to help get this started. We need to find a good location. Probably you can talk to Clark Hall. We got the new county, we got the $1 million facility out there. There's a spot of open field that you can put a shelter out there. Let's see, can they do?
And then Mr. Franklin, you have a motion on the floor.
It was discussion there. It was a discussion.
Well, we hadn't seconded it yet. Is there a second motion?
I'll second the motion.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Franklin, but the motion is to match $50,000 for Bissell Foundation for a total of $100 to be appropriated by the city of Helena-West for animal control shelter.
That's it there.
That shall include a request to the Mariana Animal Control Shelter to participate in this process and if necessary to bid on the construction of it and other issues that deal with funding.
There you go.
That's all. There's a second. Ms. Ford is right next.
It's that money that you're putting in donations to seven addition. So we have done for the city. Yeah, that's, he said it's an addition.
And if I could add, in addition to thanking Mr. Franklin for his comments, because I agree with, and the public will be glad to know, we actually agree on this one. Now, it would be, I think, Mr. Franklin's idea to maybe create a Friends of Animal Control. We went through and asked Meals on Wheels and anybody else interested to serve on that, to be a recipient or receptacle for those tax-free dollars. I think that's a good idea as well, Mr. Franklin. So any other questions or comments? Ms. Ford, you want to direct, if you could talk in the mic because they're trying to get this on. Ms. Franklin, Ms. Ford, if you could talk into the mic for the radio.
What role other than a board with the Meals on Wheels, would they operate the center or would they just be a board member?
It's sometime before,
In your vision?
before we get this rolling, maybe we could invite Ms. Galloway or some more people who want to be involved in this process. I do want to get it started so that we can find people who want to help us.
Ms. Ford, if I could,
oversight, is that what you're saying? The city would be oversight, is that?
Just have a head in oversight. Until we can get the money together to look at the 2023 budget at the end of the year, because nothing's probably going to happen at the beginning of it, but that's going to happen now, this funding and see where we can go. But I would like to see the mayor or I go out and talk to the county judge, because they have $1 million facility out there. They have a lot of land out there that people can watch. So not to be on our land or anything else.
And Ms. Ford, if I could add on.
Thank you.
If I could add to Ms. Franklin's comments, before it's actually constructed, you're going to get another opportunity to discuss this, because we will take bids according to the motion. And that'll bring the discussion up again about some of the issues and questions you raise. Any other questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Yes.
Anthony? Franklin?
Yes.
Crockett? Santonia?
Yeah.
Davis?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
One abstention, 5 yes.
Motion passes. Motion passes, and I do.
Off to the races.
I do want to thank Ms. Franklin, Mr. St. Columbia both for your leadership on that. All right. Request to amend 2021 and 22 budgets. Again, I brought this up at the last meeting. You address it in a minute. Well, it's actually the next item on salaries. Legislative audit brought it to my attention, and I've said this several times, there are two things that we have to do. We're actually more than that with our ordinances, but according to state law, we have to both appropriate and authorize any expenditure, including salaries. And according to legislative audit and review of our accounts, we did not, according to the law, appropriate our salary raises as is required by law. They were not appropriated correctly. In order for them to demonstrate that they were, we have to amend the budget, and I believe you do. I'm getting ready to recognize Mr. Valley, and we'll just merge these two items together. But we're about to amend the budget so that the appropriations will be legal and authorizations. And I will only caution for the record to the city council that
any motion, and myself for that matter, any motion that is made regarding expenditures has to, as has been pointed out earlier, has to both be appropriated by the city council and authorized if it's over $5,000, or into a contract or exempted from a contract, depending on the council if it's over 7,500. So those are local ordinances, but state law says requires us in the Constitution to appropriate money, and separately, even if it's in the same motion, authorize that expenditure. Those are two very separate things. So the legislative audit has found these items and asked us to address them. Mr. Valley.
This is a resolution number 3, 2022. It lists all the pay raises that were given. While I disagree with legislative audit, we wanted to make sure that we, out of abundance of caution, remove this from it. What you have is a resolution ratifying all the expenditures for number 3, 2022. It shows that every salary increase that was given in 2021 on page 2 with attached a chart that was provided by the city treasurer, Ms. Turner, and then the budget appropriation salaries is the second page, and then all of the minutes where you voted for it. So it's clear that the council intended for all those raises and voted for it in open meeting. And this resolution is to ratify all those expenditures.
Mr. Franklin makes a motion to approve resolution number 3, according to the appropriations of the salary increases in the budget stated in the resolution, seconded by Mr. St. Columbia. Any questions about resolution number 3? If not, call the roll.
Etherly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Davis, Crockett, Franklin,
Yes.
St. 6 yes.
Motion passes. The next item is donation of police transport van, which has not been in use in quite a while, to the Helena-West Future Leaders Youth Sports Association. Mr. Sammy Arnett, are you here? I don't say, but I have spoken to him about it. It's very simple. We have a van, and Lieutenant Smith could address any questions, I guess, but we have had a van for quite some time. It hasn't been used. And the Mr. Arnett and the Helena-West Future Leaders Youth Sports Association, which you've seen them, they're doing the Pee Wee football, they're doing a lot of activities around town. They've been very proactive here locally, and we're very appreciative of what they're doing. They have asked us to donate that transport van to them so that they can pick up players for practice and games and so forth, because public transit is an issue with some of their players, some of the kids that play on these teams. And I told them, obviously the city council would have to approve, but I thought it was great. It's not being used. What they're doing is very good for the community. So that's what I'll say in Mr. Arnett's absence. Ms. Crockett.
Yes, I would like to ask the city attorneys, we can't give away city property.
That's correct. We can give it away. The city council can sell it publicly or privately, and we can sell it for what its value is. Value may be, considering its age, uses, and wear and tear, it could be very minimal value, but we can't just give it away.
I thought we could donate it to a non-profit organization.
I would double check that, but I think competition.
If she makes a motion, if you want to put a price on that, which I think they might accept, would still be the law.
Can we just? Yeah, if you sell it, it's fine.
As long as it's not dramatically lower than.
It could be a public auction, private auction, I believe it could be a private sale. Let's table it to next meeting since they're not here. They need it before 2 weeks.
It could be a dollar.
That's, you know. I don't think it could be a dollar, but if it's only worth $400 or $500, it's only worth.
Let's look $500 bill, these should cost.
Not $500.
To show up and give Mr. Valley time to research.
It's not even running, it's
I mean,
not
I'm
working.
donating it to nonprofit. I'm not aware that Mr. Valley seems to have some there might be issues. And I'm really willing, Mr. Arnett's absence to wait 2 weeks to find out. I'm asking they are to it.
We should help the pockets. We can get it done together, me and you. No, but I want to put you another tag like this.
So we're gonna table the transport van issue to the next meeting. In the meantime, we'll let, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Valley will, research the issue, donating vehicles or transferring city property to nonprofits. Mr. Franklin.
Man, you can get it for them. Man, God has blessed us so. You can help fight his bed for them and show the outward.
I'm not sure even we can do it without Mr. Valley's legal opinion on that. So we'll table that issue until the next meeting. The next item on the agenda, ordinance number 1222, is construction to pay for work in Oak Forest. This is the raw sewage issue. Reach Construction did the work to fix the temporary repair to keep the raw sewage from pumping out into a watershed. And we have people here to address that situation if needed, but that's the question for the council.
I believe the next 4 or 5 issues are, Mr. Kim Wyman is here. We have Reach Construction's item, Team Cara Machinery, and we also have his contract. We can try to do those. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I've met with him about Reach Construction, and I believe that it was his opinion that Reach Construction is vital to ongoing projects. Is that correct, Mr. Wyman? It's ordinance number 12-2022. It's ordinance where we prepare to bid. It's a work that was done at Oak Forest by Reach Construction. It was tabled 3 times. I was actually, Reach Construction, I called you up about it. When I met with you privately about it, it's my understanding that Reach Construction was a vital entity for us going forward relating to these water issues.
Yes, I mean, I didn't have anything to do with his invoice or anything like that, but his construction has been very important to the city and will remain very important to the city. And that they have the ability to respond in real major utility emergencies. So the wall sewage was out in the people. Right away.
See, this is exactly what we were talking about. This is what we were talking about earlier. This is like, this is what, but you know, I'll let you speak. Speak, maybe you get some help. Maybe you get some help. I'm not enough. You just told me what you got. So what I'm saying is, this is the Mr. Money. If this had been being out the right way, you wouldn't have to have it. Control the people. I'm just saying, it's one thing. I'm gonna give you the help you need. I'm gonna give you the help you need. Once you just learn how to be patient. You know, this is what we all talking about. I'm gonna help you this time. This time I'm gonna help you because I want you to leave me and come back and do the work. But see, if okay, don't bless my heart. You just messed it up for yourself, sir. Let me say something, though.
So I guess Mr. Franklin, for the second of it.
We've discussed this 3 or 4 times. And we're not trying to punish the mayor here. Let's go ahead. All we're doing is punishing Reach Construction that did the work. It was an emergency. The mayor had to do it. He had to get it done. If he hadn't got it done, the citizens of this community would have suffered. And his job is to protect the property and welfare, the health of the citizens. I made this motion, ordinance three times, and I'll make it again tonight, and ask my colleague, with me to support me on this. We need to pay Reese Construction. We need to pass ordinance number 12, and I so move that we place that on third and final reading.
Is that suspended rule placed on third and final reading, read the title only, Mr. St. Columbia?
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Valley. Motion on the table as stated by Mr. Valley. Is there a second? Mr. Evans seconds the motion. Any discussion about the motion?
Yes, sir.
Questions? Mr. Evans?
Mr. St. Columbia, I second your motion because I like Mr. Wilder. You know, I want to help him out. All right. If the mayor had not taken the action that he took, 3 weeks later, we would have arrived at the same point. All we had to do was do what we actually did. That's all we had to do. We would have been at the same point 3 weeks later. If for 6 months, we could have been for 3 more weeks. Right? But I want to help Mr. Wilder.
Any other questions or comments about the motion? There was, Mr. Evans seconded it. Any other questions or comments about the motion on the table? Mr. Franklin?
I was gonna second Mr. St. Columbia's motion, but I like King Wiley. He does a good job. And I think that anything he said, I can trust him. I can trust him with a clock.
He's been here long time.
Yes, he has. And I like his work. That's not, but if you had been somebody else, you'd be like Tina Turner, you'd be like to drive.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about the motion? Ms. Crockett?
I'm just gonna represent that it's nothing personal against Reese Construction or Mr. Wiley. This is for Mr. Wiley has done a really great job, and we need him to keep the people that he needs to help him get done what he needs to get done.
That's right.
But all I'm saying is, if it had been done the way that it was proposed, Reese would have been spent that money to be asking for some help.
That's right. Like I always say, come to us.
Any other comments or questions about the question? If not, call roll.
Davis,
Yes.
St. Columbia, Crockett,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Ford, 6 yes.
Ordinance number 12, 2022, ordinance waiving competitive bidding in accordance with Arkansas Code Annotated 1458-303, authorizing the mayor to contract to purchase certain equipment and or repair equipment for the city of Helena-West, Helena for other related purpose. There has to be a motion to adopt.
Mr. Franklin moves, Mr. Secretary seconds the motion to adopt ordinance number 12, 2022. Are there any questions, comments? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia,
Yeah.
Franklin, Crockett, Davis,
Yes.
Ford, Etherly,
Yes.
6 yes.
There's a mercy clause.
Mr. Franklin moves, Mr. Secretary seconds the mercy clause on ordinance number 12, 2022. Any questions or comments? If not, call the roll.
Franklin,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Ford, Crockett, St. Columbia, 6 yes.
Okay. Ordinance number 11, 2022 is Xylem Water. You all approved $100,000. Xylem, you all approved $100,000 the last council meeting.
That's the third.
It's the motion to place on the third and final reading the title only. Y'all vote to make the appropriation so that you can get the real equipment for the bypasses to be appropriated $100,000. And we're doing an ordinance to waive waiving competitive bidding. Now, there's still the other issue of $212,000, $247,869 to discuss, but y'all directed me to do ordinance what the mayor is reminding me to say to you, but that's y'all vote on, just need the ordinance to clean it up. Yeah, you did 100,000 appropriated, you haven't discussed the $247,869. Correct, $100,000 you all directed me to bring ordinance on. It's an ordinance waiting, it's third final reading, suspend the rules, title only.
Is there a motion? Second. Yes, I didn't hear. Mr. Franklin moves that we put ordinance number 11, 2022 on Xylem on third and final reading. Ms. Davis seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Davis,
Yes.
St. Columbia, Crockett, Franklin?
Yes.
Etherly?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
6 yes.
Okay, order number 11, 2022, orders waiving competitive bidding in accordance with Arkansas Code Annotated 1458-303, authorizing the mayor to enter a contract to purchase certain equipment and or repair for the city of Helena-West for other related purposes. Need a motion to adopt.
Mr. Franklin moves adoption of orders number 11, 2022. Ms. Davis seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Etherly?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Crockett?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
St. Columbia?
Yes.
6 yes.
Motion passes.
As an emergency clause.
Emergency clause of ordinance number 11, 2022. Mr. Franklin moves adoption. Is there a second? Ms. Crockett seconds the motion for the emergency clause of ordinance number 11, 2022. Any questions or comments? If not, call the roll.
Franklin?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Etherly?
Yes.
Ford? Crockett? St. Columbia? 6 yes.
Motion passes.
We have order number 15-22. We all discussed that as well. It was 10 car. You asked us to bring that back. You all took no action on it. If you remind, this is repair. The water department said the 100,000 was for the bypass. The 36,785 need to be paid. For 10 car to come back to repair the actual pumps themselves. It's a motion to place on 35. Reading the title only. Suspend the rules.
And the amount was
$36,785.91 is what the ordinance is.
Mr. Franklin moves that we put ordinance number 15, 2022 on third and going to call it to third and final reading. This is the second by Mr. St. Columbia. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Davis?
Yes.
St. Columbia?
Yes.
Crockett?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Etherly?
Yes.
Ford?
Order number 15-2022, an ordinance waiving competitive bidding according to Arkansas Code Annotated 1458-303, authorizing mayor to contract to purchase certain equipment for the city and for other related purposes. Need a motion to adopt.
I'll say Ms. Crockett, motion for final adoption, ordinance number 15, 2022, and Tim Carver. Second by Mr. Franklin. Any comments or questions about the motion? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Crockett? Davis?
Yes.
Ford? Etherly?
Yes.
6 yes.
Yes, that's a motion clause.
Question is, motion clause in ordinance number 15, 2022, Tim Carver, Mr. Franklin makes the motion to approve the motion clause in ordinance 15, 2022. Is there a second? Ms. Crockett seconds the motion. Any comments or questions about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Ford? Etherly?
Yes.
Crockett?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
St. Columbia?
Yes.
6 yes.
If I may take the liberty to skip on the agenda, Mr. Wyland is here. We'll ask him to bring a contract relating to 3 properties. Regarding the 3, I said property, but you all stop. Mr. Wyland is here about engineering services contract for 3 different projects. To finish the project, or the department hire him on the task for, I'm trying to explain what we're talking about. On Oak Forest, he also had a task for the rerouting of the pipes for the future bridge. And there was a 3rd project. Ms. Wyland, what's the 3rd project?
There was a discussion about the pump stations.
Yes, pump station, thank you, thank you. I successfully reviewed his contract related to those things. He has a standard engineering contract. And he's here to answer any questions. I believe there's Mr. Sagan already here. I just wanted to lay out what the discussion was, and if Mr. Wyland has anything to say.
Before we take motions to say, Mr. Wyland, you want to speak to what Mr. Wyland said on those projects, so the public understands what we're talking about.
The contracts, and that's really the update. I've been struggling trying to figure out what type of engineering services.
Can you speak into the mic a little bit, maybe?
Engineering services contract would be best suited for this, because we've got 3 different projects. But instead of having to create that
Fit double-sided contract each time. It's one contract with all of the standard language. It's a contract that's been adopted by U.S. The Rural Development, U.S. Department of Agriculture, Rural Development. And it's called a task order contract. So you basically have all of the legalese and boilerplate, but then each particular project is served by its own, what's called a task order, which is basically 4 pages. So when you want me to do something such as the highway relocations, we fill out that task order and it is tied to that contract instead of having to redo that contract every time. And so that's what I will, if y'all want me to do those 3 projects, you need to approve me to go ahead and submit a task order to the attorney. Now, we also have a few details in the bid contract to work out. Attorney Valley, we need to work out the limitations on liability, insurance requirements, things like that.
Yes, sir, that's all.
But that shouldn't take much time.
But we were asking, I am asking the city attorney and Mr. Ryder just explain for you all to approve, give the mayor the authority, the mayor to finalize the contract with Mr. Wyland related to the issues. And I don't have an appropriation amount at this time.
We bring the task orders to the council for each project. Say, okay, task order 1, relocations. It has on there basically, we're probably just going to do it on an hourly basis, a fee hourly basis, just like the money would work, because I really can't tell you what it's going to take. It's a complicated project. Oak Forest is not as complicated, but it's just going to take some work, and we got to figure out if we got right-of-way issues. It's going to probably be the best way to handle it. But I think what's important in light of what I've written in here is that we bring each task order and have each task order approved by the council as well as the mayor. And that way everyone understands what I'm doing as a ballpark.
Right. And so that's why we are at that point, but you all asked me to bring something back because he's been working diligently trying to give it. He's gotten it to me and I reviewed it and there's some things that he and I still have to read about. But basically we're going through, as he completes the task, he's going to bring it back for, here's the scope, here's what they're going to call certain engineering fees and et cetera. But we're trying to engage him to make sure that we go forward and understand. This does not have to be bid. These are professional services. This professional services are treated different from other bidding. It's just a matter of appropriation. At this time, it's not actually anything but appropriate. We're trying to start the relationship.
Mr. Wyler, if you don't mind, I know one of them is the Highway 49 relocation. What they mean by that is they're fixing the part of the Helena Bridge. The approach to the Helena Bridge is going to be replaced. Is that right?
The first bridge off of Columbia, off the bypass, the first bridge is completely replaced.
Yeah, the ramp leading up to the bridge is going to be completely replaced by the highway department. In order to do that, we have to do some issues about right-of-way regarding city and state right-of-way for our issues, and we're engaging in you to work with the state to locate the city's right-of-way and to move those right-of-ways or to pick them according to the project. And since those right-of-ways were established years ago, they're conflicting. So we need an engineering firm, according to the state of Arkansas, to help us identify them. Is that correct?
Well, I say that correctly. The main task there is that you have 4 major utility lines that are going to be potentially in conflict with that new bridge.
Right.
And so those
So we might have to move them.
will have to be relocated. That's right.
But we have to engage an engineering firm to determine those things.
Yes, sir.
I know the state was really on top of us to get this done because we're looking at what, a year from now about to construct, which is not that long from now, really, when it comes to planning and design. What are the other 2 issues?
Oak Forest and the bypass.
So the long-term fix on Oak Forest, actually implementation, because you did the plan that was submitted to environmental quality, right? AEQ, correct? And they approved the long-term fix and the short-term fix. But so now this is an engagement to implement the long-term fix at Oak Forest, correct? And what's the third thing?
The third thing was, it was mentioned to me that the city may need some help on pump stations. I'm glad you approved Tim Carter because the pump station issue is going to be
and I'm sorry Jeff's not here really, who'd be the best one to speak to it, because I'm not intimately familiar with exactly what's wrong with all those pumps, but I know, some pumps may have to be replaced, some pumps are probably just gonna need very serious maintenance done to them, and you don't necessarily need an engineer. So I guess I'll have to get.
It might be, I think the engagement is to enter into bidding for replacement and or repair of those pumps so that we can no longer have to lease them. Does that sound good, right?
For the pump stations that are on bypass, because the old pumps that are there are just completely worn out and they can't be fixed, or they're having trouble fixing them.
We need an engineer in order to engage that work, right?
Well, you would have to build the replacement of the pump.
I just want to make sure everybody understood what three things were. Any questions or comments, and now accept our motions. What was the motion? You made it, you seconded it. I didn't. Ms. Crockett made a motion that we engage Smith and Wallen engineer, but we engage Smith and Wallen engineer on the three projects as identified.
The technical name that he's saying is the task orders.
Seconded by Mr. Franklin, is that right?
That's right.
Any questions about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Franklin. Beverly. Forward.
I think Ms. Mayor was going to divide to look at VC3. There's order number 14, it's been tabled many times, VC3. Those are people who are doing our networking. Yes.
But Ms. Raymond said, that's what she want done.
I appreciate you passing it. Thank you. And then you can hold me hostage for the next time.
So VC, I believe somebody's mic is off. Somebody's trying to get. Yeah. Order number 14 dash. Order number 14-22, I believe it is. Is that correct, Madam?
Yes, sir.
That's related to VC3, that provide the monthly IT services. Mr. Franklin moved to put order number 14-2022 on its third and final reading the title only. I don't know if that was a second related to VCC.
Second, Mr. Davis, I think.
Ms. Davis, second. Okay.
Question for tables, ordinance 14 on, for third and final reading. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Davis. Yes. Crockett. St. Columbia. Thank you. That's right.
So the motion is to suspend the rules and third final reading the title only. Wait, and there's a motion to adopt that needs to be done after read it. Order 14-2022, in order to waive and compare the bidding in according to Arkansas Code Annotated Section 14-58-303, authorizing mayor into a contract for certain services and equipment and for the city of Helena-West for related purposes. Ms. Crockett moves and Ms. Davis second.
Okay, any questions or comments about the motion as stated? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia. Crockett. Forward. Etherly.
Yes.
Davis. Yes. Franklin.
Yes.
Yes.
It has an emergency clause.
Has an emergency clause, ordinance 1422. Ms. Franklin moves, Ms. Crockett seconds the motion. Questions or comments about the emergency clause? If not, call the roll.
Crockett. Ms. Crockett? Davis? Yes. Etherly? Yes. St. Columbia? Franklin? Yes. Ford? Yes. 6 yes, thank y'all.
Motion passes. So there's two more ordinances I think we need to address. One is ordinance number 11, Purchase of 3 work trucks. I think that's misnumbered. What is the proper number? Because we did order number 11 earlier.
18.
18.
18,
Purchase of 3 work trucks for the street department for cleaners. Yes, it says 18.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones, I know you got the money, but the money we pay for the water department. So move.
So is order number 18?
Yes, sir.
18-2022 is ordinance relating to
Mr. Franklin also put ordinance number 18-2022 on third and final reading regarding the purchase of 3 work trucks for the street department. So there was a second.
Now, I made the motion,
So Mr. Crockett, Mr. Franklin, second.
Yeah, it's a.
Any questions or comments about putting on third and final reading, ordinance number 18-2022? If not,
Man, you didn't put that in there, use the money from the water department, did we get a month?
well, Ms. Crockett said she made the motion, so.
Yeah, see what happens.
just like this.
Like I said,
Okay, but then I'll go to general fund anyway.
yeah, but see, the money collected from the water department, that makes sure this ain't paying the truck with cash, right?
I think you said she wanted just as is in the interest of time, it's 8:10. So it's motion and second, that's how we do.
Motion second. Any other questions or comments about the motion on the third and final reading for ordinance number 18? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia.
Yes.
Crockett. Ford. Davis. Franklin. 5 yes, 1 absent.
Motion passes.
Motion, ordinance number 18-2022, ordinance waiving fair bidding in the Code of Arkansas Law. Code annotated section 1458-303, authorizing the mayor to enter contract for certain property for the city of Helena-West for other related purposes. Motion adopt.
Mr. Franklin. Mr. Crockett, second motion for final approval on ordinance number 18-22. Any questions or comments? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia. Franklin. Crockett. Davis. Ford. 5 yes, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Emergency clause.
Yes, emergency clause.
Emergency clause on ordinance number 18-22. Mr. Franklin moves. Ms. Crockett seconds the motion. Questions about the emergency clause on ordinance 18-22. If not, call the roll.
Ford. Yes. Franklin.
Yes.
Crockett. St. Columbia. Davis.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes.
Next one, what if we skip, Madam Clerk, what's the other one? Order number 17 is financing a pump trucker for,
We got ordinance 16.
police trucks, I'm sorry, 16. Order number 16 is 2 police trucks, 16-2022.
It's for 2 trucks for the police department being paid for through a grant from rural development.
Is head out?
Huh?
We got a head down?
It's in your packet.
Order number 16-2022, waive the credit and it's placed on third and final reading so long.
Dave seconds motion for ordinance number 16-2022 regarding the trucks, the police department on third and final reading. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Davis.
Yes.
St. Columbia. Crockett. Franklin. Ford. 5 yes.
Passes.
Order 16-2022, an ordinance waiving competitive bidding in Code of Arkansas Code annotated section 1458-303, authorizing mayor to a contract to purchase certain equipment for the city of Helena-West for other related purposes. Franklin moves. Ma'am?
Two trucks.
He had to say something because he didn't say that, did he?
It's back up, it's back up. The trucks are rising. Y'all already put stuff.
The total ordinance,
Yeah, we did, the only thing we had to do was the trucks. So we've already done this back on last year.
was this like I'm last year, here, almost here. Not to the process, well, the vote is, the vote on the adoption, right?
Yeah, we're adopting.
The vote, are we voting on the adoption of this one?
Yes.
I forgot.
Motion is second for adoption. Ladies, excuse me just a second.
Did you move the adoption, final adoption? Mr. Franklin, second. Mr. Franklin moved final adoption, ordinance number 16, 2022. Now, any other questions or comments about the ordinance for final adoption? And we've already read it, so. Okay, call the roll.
St. Columbia. Franklin. Crockett. Davis.
Yes.
Ford. 5 yes, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Emergency clause in ordinance number 16, 2022. Is there a motion, a second? Emergency clause, Ms. St. Columbia moves adoption of the emergency clause. Is there a second? Ms. Crockett seconds the motion on ordinance number 16, 2022. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Franklin.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Ford. Crockett. St. Columbia. 5 yes, 1 absent.
And we still have the fire pumper truck,
Yes.
order number 17. Order number 17.
So, wait. I think what's the time?
The F1 Chief Warren asked us to wait to adopt this. I said it begins like 24 months. We got just a little about.
You said that they ordered.
I said it's happening. We had some discussion. Can you just tell me, we had some discussion about the timing of the renewal before we talk to you about it. That we wanted to delay it for a couple of months. They were going to payment. So what we said, the time that we approve is when the payment will be due in 24 months. So the longer we take to actually approve it, it defers the. So you said we're going to do it?
That's why. Yeah, I think, I'm saying because we would have to take 2 years.
Order number 17, 2022 is related to the fire pumper truck. Is there a motion to place order number 17, 2022 in the third and final reading of the title only? Second reading, please. 17, 2022. Second is that we put a file, third final reading on number 1722 regarding the fire pumper. So second. The support seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion?
Davis.
Yes.
St. Columbia. Crockett. Franklin. Ford.
Order number 17, 2022, order waiving the credibility according to Arkansas Code annotated section 1458-303, authorizing the man to a contract purchase certain property for the city of Helena-West for elevated purposes. Is there a motion to adopt? Mr. Franklin moves final adoption of ordinance 16, 2022. Ms. Crockett seconds the motion. Any other questions about the fire, from the fire department? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia. Franklin. Crockett. Davis. Ford.
The interlocal agreement with the county. Oh, emergency clause. Mr. Franklin moves adoption of the emergency clause in ordinance number 16, 2022. Fire pumper is a second. Is there a second on the emergency clause? Ms. Ford seconds the motion on the emergency clause. Any questions or comments? If not, call the roll. Fire pump, the fire department pumper. F2, Mr. DeMarcus Bourne came and talked to us about that about 5 or 6 weeks ago.
I thought we just said we was telling you. Cause you said he had some discussion.
Their discussion with him, they said, go ahead and do it. So that's. I was asking for clarity. We already had a motion to say an emergency clause, but any other questions or comments about the emergency clause? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia. Ford. Franklin. Davis. Crockett. 5 yes.
For the record, the clarity we were asking for was just simply the timing of when they adopted. It was not whether we should adopt, it's timing. And that's why I asked the mayor and the city treasurer about it. The interlocal agreement, just give you an update. There's one in your package that made some minor changes. The county requested minor changes. The judge came at the beginning of the meeting and he shook my hand to say the county adopted it and they just wanted us to drop the amended. The amended just had language clarifying that this is a reimbursement type contract where the city would pay the money and the county reimburse. That's what the Yes, that's what the clerk and the deputy clerk, they're paying half of they agreed to pay half of the clerk's salary and half of one-third of the deputy clerk's salary. They just wanted clarity on the issue of reimbursement, how it operates, and they will be city employees. So we just need to approve the amended contract. We've already approved it once. It's just that's the only change in it. Right, but they approved it tonight.
Mr. St. Clement moves adoption. Mr. Franklin seconds the motion to approve the agreement as stated by Mr. Vowell with the corner court on the district court. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Franklin. Davis. Forward. Crockett. St. Columbia. Thank you.
The final item on the agenda, we did not have an ordinance for, so that's fine.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. St. Clement moves adjournment. Is there a second?